into the back of his pickup. He climbed behind the wheel. Scrubbing his forehead, he willed the headache to subside. These days, he stayed tired. It had been a while since Dad had been able to help on the farm. Cranking the engine, Nate jostled down the rutted path toward the barn. The boys would be wondering where he was. He liked to be there when they got home from school. Yet, despite how hard he tried, he'd failed them once again. Not for the first time. He thought how much better Deanna would have coped as a single parent, but she was the one who died, and he was the one left to pick up the pieces of an unimaginable future spent without her. Holding the leash of a medium-sized, sable-colored rough collie, a woman with indistinct features emerged from the shadows cast by the barn. Gut-churning, he suddenly realized he was late for the appointment with the trainer from Paw Pals. He braked sharply, sending gravel spinning. The woman jerked. Nate threw himself out of the vehicle. Way to make a terrible first impression, Crenshaw. He hoped his dad had stepped into the gap due to his lack of hospitality. The boys had been looking forward to the dog coming to live with them. Probably lively 5-year-old Cody and 7-year-old Connor had more than made up for his absence and provided a most cordial welcome. From a distance, his first impressions of the dog trainer were of her even, pleasing features. She was pretty in an outdoorsy way. Compared to his 6-foot height, she wasn't tall, maybe only 5'5". Casually dressed in jeans, brown ankle boots, and an oversized beige sweater, she wore her hair in a pale golden braid, which hung over her shoulder. Tromping across the yard to meet her, he raised his hand. The dog yipped a greeting. "I'm so sorry I'm late, Miss Spencer. I meant to be here to greet you, but the time got away from me." She stepped out of the shadows and into the slanted light of the sun. A slight breeze fluttered the blue silk ribbon tied around the end of her braid. Once upon a lifetime ago, he'd known a girl who wore her hair the same way. Hand outstretched, he got his first glimpse of her face. A face that teased at the edges of his memory. "Welcome to..." The pieces of an all-too-familiar puzzle clicked into place. His heart skipping a beat, he came to a complete halt. "Gemma?" He blinked at her. "Gemma Anderson?" Dropping his hand, he went rigid. "You're the dog trainer Juliet sent?" She stiffened. "It's Spencer now. And yes, I'm here to help your father bond with Rascal." He flicked a look at the collie sitting quietly at her feet. "Rascal?" The dog cocked his head. She flipped the end of her braid over her shoulder. It suited him in an entirely endearing way. He folded his arms across his chest. "I'm sorry you came all this way for nothing. This isn't going to work out." Gemma's heart skipped a beat. "You can't be serious." Rascal rubbed his nose against her hand. The collie always sensed when his humans needed emotional support. It was this sensitivity that made him such a great service dog. Nathan's blue eyes glinted. "I've never been more serious." She threw out her hands. "But why?" He lifted his Stetson off his head and placed it again on top of his short, dark hair. "I think you know why." As 17-year-olds, they'd met as 4-H camp counselors. During that unforgettable summer, they fell in love. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me," she rasped. When the summer ended, they vowed to love each other forever. But after she returned to her home near Greensboro in the Piedmont, her world fell apart. She immediately ended her budding relationship with him, stopped answering his letters, and refused to take his phone calls. Later, she'd heard through the 4-H grapevine, he and a former girlfriend got married. "No one ever forgets their first love." He threw her a piercing look. "Nor the dear John left in my voicemail the very next day." Because the next day after she returned home, her mother was dead, and her father in prison. The shame had been too much. Recalling that terrible day brought only darkness, a downward spiral into an abyss she'd barely managed to survive. She wouldn't go back to that time in her life. Better for him to believe her cold-hearted.